So as I'm sure loads of you are aware already, this channel's been taking a turn towards the paranormal for quite a few months now. And there's a reason for that. Obviously, first of all, I started the series Paranormal Scotland with the BBC. And on top of that, I've been doing quite a bit of research into the paranormal as well. I've been lucky enough to meet some really interesting characters in the world of the paranormal too. So I've been chatting with Ron Halliday, who is the author of UFO Scotland and multiple books about paranormal and ghosts and so on. He's actually one of the main people that gets called to be on TV shows like GMTV and Sky News and stuff when paranormal things or things with aliens and stuff are happening in Britain. So it's quite interesting. I've also had a couple of nice chats as well with Malcolm Robinson, who was also an author of the paranormal based here in Scotland, and also he was the lead investigator into the massive spate of UFO sightings in Scotland in the 90s, which has led to Scotland being the UFO capital of the world, which is mental. And I quite like doing paranormal research and stuff. I have a mountain of paranormal books here, and yes, I think I'm gonna maybe follow in their footsteps and keep doing these paranormal things. As the opportunities for paranormal things keep flooding in, I'm getting some amazing opportunities. It's going to be wild, trust me. So yeah, I'm going to keep following this path. But in order to do that, right, and in order to do it fairly, right, I can't have the people that I'm speaking to be the ones taking all the risk. And by risks, I mean they're the ones that are going to get mocked by the viewers because they believe in aliens, or they believe in ghosts, or they believe in anything paranormal. So it's only fair on them that I tell you guys today, on Halloween, since it's a spooky day, my history with the paranormal. Well, we'll have to start just with ghosts, otherwise this video will last forever. So here we go. I'm gonna have to tell you guys the story, which is quite embarrassing because people won't believe it, and people will think that I'm making it up because when people can't see ghosts themselves, they generally think you're talking nonsense. So, but there we go. Okay. So, from the age of 1 year old, I lived in a haunted house. And back then, my parents lived in a council property. And they did eventually buy the house. But yeah, and from the age of 1, I lived there. And there was a ghost that was in my bedroom almost every night. Back then, I shared a bedroom with my brother. And every night, this ghost would come into the room. And he would stand at the bottom of my bed. And he would just like stare at me and then look at my brother and stuff, and we were terrified the whole time. So as far back as I can remember, I've always seen ghosts. And we used to be so scared that we used to, every night we'd be like, "Are you still awake?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And he'd be like, "Are you still awake?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And we'd do that all night until we both fell asleep because there was a freaking ghost in the room with us. And yeah, we lived there till I was about 11, and funnily enough, just before we moved house, one of my friends, I was a first year at school at this point, one of my friends, Ross, he came over and he was staying the night, and he went to the bathroom, and it was like 1 in the morning, right? And he started screaming and screaming and screaming, and then he ran out of the house, and he ran home, and he lived like quite far away, and we're very young, so it was quite strange for him to be running away in the middle of the night. And I asked him later why he ran away when we were at school, and he said he saw the face of a little boy in the mirrors. But back then, my parents did this thing where there was mirrors on both sides of the bathroom wall, right, which gives you infinity mirrors, so you would have seen this face reflecting back and forth constantly, which would have been terrifying. So no wonder he ran away. He was traumatized and he refused to ever go in my house ever again. So it wasn't just a case of me and my brother seeing this, somebody else saw it too. That was pretty scary. And then we moved house, and it wasn't until after we moved house that my parents told us that what actually happened. And it was so they bought that house from the council, but before they bought it, they were able to swap houses. We lived in like a flat somewhere, and they swapped with one of their friends. And what happened was my mum's friend had a little boy who got out of the house, and he ran in front of a car, and he was killed. And what happened was we were sleeping in his bedroom, and that's why we saw a ghost every night. And when I told my mum this, she was like absolutely terrified with this, and she was like, "Oh my god, why didn't you tell me? I would have moved house years ago," so on and so on. And I was like, well, we're too scared. We're little kids living with a ghost. We don't want the ghost to hear us speaking about the ghost, so we never spoke about the ghost. We just spoke about it to each other at night when we were trying to sleep. We barely even mentioned it, we just pretended we didn't really see it, and then each would say to each other, are you still awake? Are you still awake? Yeah. So we moved house, right? And we moved to Alton's, right? Now that house wasn't haunted, so I didn't see any ghosts in that house in Alton's, thankfully. So my teenage years were quite calm. But one time I was at a party at my friend's house, my friend Laura. And we're at this party, and I saw my friend Stuart running up the stairs, and he looked distressed. So I followed him, and I was sure it was my friend Stuart because he looked similar to him, and he was wearing the same colour shirt. So I followed him, and I ran into the parents' bedroom, and then I followed them into the parents' ensuite bathroom, and he was gone. It wasn't my friend Stuart, and I was like, what? And then I was just left in the bathroom. I saw the mirror, which made me feel a bit eerie. And then I left, and then I went downstairs, and my friend was there, and I was like, oh, it wasn't him. And I was like, what? That's so weird. I'd seen a ghost in the middle of a party. I was chasing a ghost, and I was just like, oh my god. I think back then I must have been about 14, and I told my friend, and she told her parents and her sister, and they were all terrified, and they were all so scared that they couldn't sleep at night. So I told them that I made it up, and that I was just being stupid. And to this day, everybody thinks that I was lying and that I made it up when it was real. It's true. It literally happened. Luckily they won't see this video, so they won't be traumatized by figuring out that it's real, but it was a long time ago, so I think they're going to be too bothered now. So I had to face the embarrassment of going back to my friend's house and meeting their parents and having them like give me into trouble for making up lies that scared them, and it was actually true, but I just figured it was better to let them have a good night's sleep and just let them think that I was being a little shit. So there we go. And then let's see, so because I wasn't living in a haunted house, I don't really have that much issues for a while with ghosts or whatever, until I was about 20, and then I moved into a house in Portlethen with my parents as well, and this house had a poltergeist. This is one of the worst hauntings I've ever seen in my life. And so basically, every night I would wake up at 2 in the morning, and I would have sleep paralysis. And I know people are going to go in the comments and be all like, well, sleep paralysis, there's a scientific reason for it, and so on and so on and so on. It's nothing to do with ghosts, right? But when I had sleep paralysis, yeah, I'd waken up, right, and I would do the classic thing. I can't lift my chest up, I couldn't lift my head up, I could only maybe move my chin like a couple of millimeters, right? But when I had it, what would happen is the first thing I would notice when I waken up is I would see my breath. There would be a huge temperature drop in the room, and I would see my breath, and I would be completely frozen with my head back, trying to move. And I would hear the footsteps of the poltergeist in the hall, moving about back and forth. And you know, I did often think to myself, maybe it's just my imagination, maybe there is a scientific reason for the sleep paralysis, or maybe that's why people include that in horror films all the time, because it's spooky, because it feels paranormal. And even if you don't see ghosts, it feels paranormal. People suspect it is. And if you see ghosts like me, then it's definitely, well, you can only assume that it is paranormal when there's things added in, like temperature fluctuations, you can see your breath, you can hear the footprints and stuff, you can hear banging on the walls and stuff. Yeah, it's very paranormal. One time, this happened, and obviously I woke up, I could hear footsteps going through the hall, and I could see my breath, I'm completely frozen stiff, and it was always the same time at 22. And this one time things went crazy because I heard loads of thuds and banging and stuff, and my brother ran out of his bedroom, and what happened was all the books came flying off of his bookshelves and went flying across the room, and he had these like big CD racks, they both toppled over as well, and then he came out of the room, and then I was able to get up, and then I was just like, what's going on? And then he explained that everything just went flying everywhere in his room, and I looked into his bedroom, and it was everything, CDs, books, the whole room was just covered in everything. They just all came flying off the shelves, and yeah, crazy. Yeah. So there we go. That was a spooky house. And one time I saw another ghost in that house, and he seemed quite friendly though. He wore like a check shirt, had the middle part in here. He didn't seem like any sort of threat, so I managed to just fall back asleep again. Yeah, and apart from that, I didn't really see much. Apart from it appeared like knocking on the walls or doors or whatever sometimes when it was only me in the house. But apart from that, that was the last big thing. But it was the same thing, 20 to 2 every morning. I'd wake up with sleep paralysis and would see my breath. So that was quite crazy, eh? Like, by this point, like, there had started to be like psychics on TV that were becoming famous and popular, like Derek Acora and people like that. I always thought they were complete and utter frauds. I'd never seen anything that made me think that people could communicate with spirits in any way, shape or form. I'd never heard one talk or anything, so I just thought they were just talking absolute nonsense. It didn't make any sense to me, because I seem to be quite in tune with these things. I remember one time I was speaking about these things to my aunt, and the lights started. My aunt sees a lot of ghosts and stuff as well. Out of our whole family, me and her see them the most, and we're chatting away, and the lights started flickering and stuff like crazy the whole time we were talking about this specific topic. And then I got up to leave to go home, and after I left, she said that she heard somebody run through the whole house, and the door slammed, and then she looked out the window and there was nobody there. Like, a ghost had followed me out of the house. Yeah, but anyway, I was going off on a tangent. So, I'd never heard a ghost speak before. And then one day, I was renting a flat in Kincorth. And I knew it was haunted, because I had a flatmate, right? And this old lady would stand at his doorway and look into his room constantly. And it freaked me out, but it didn't bother me too much because she was focused purely on him, right? Which was fine. She was standing at his doorway, staring at him, not an issue, right? And then one day, we were sat in the living room, right? And it was really dark. We hadn't put the lights on. There was still a bit of street light coming in though, because it was a flat and it's quite high up and quite level with where the lamp would be, I suppose. So it was still quite bright, so I hadn't actually got up to put the lights on yet. So it's already in like a spooky zone, right? And all of a sudden, the room just turned deadly cold. And this old lady ran straight into the living room and then leaned forward into my face and screamed, "Get out!" as loudly and aggressively as she could, and then scurried off again, back out of the room really quickly. Then I looked at my flatmate to see if he'd just seen what I just saw, and he was sat there with his face as white as a sheet, like goosebumps basically all over his arms and stuff, and both of us could see our breath in the room because it turned that cold. And he packed his bags and left that day, actually. And I stayed there for a few more weeks, absolutely bricking it, because I was living with a poltergeist that seemed pretty angry. Yeah, not an ideal place to be living. And then I guess things started to quiet down after that. I didn't really see many ghosts through my late 20s and early to mid 30s and stuff. And then I was living in Banbury for 5 years. I didn't see a single ghost the whole time, not once. And I always just kind of thought that maybe because I was braver and it didn't scare me so much that I was able to tune out of it, or maybe I just got too old and I'm tuned out of it that way, or I don't know what it was. But I assumed that I somehow accidentally tuned out. And well, it started happening again. Like, and I've been in this house here for a year now, and a few times I woke up in the middle of the night, and it's been about 20 to 2 in the morning, and the TV's been on downstairs, and I'll shout at my dog Duke to come down with me, and he ignores me because he's sleepy and half asleep, and he just stays there. So I go down by myself and switch the TV off, and then go back to bed. And it's weird. It's like, at first I thought maybe I'd accidentally programmed the TV to turn on, but then I checked and there was nothing set to turn on or anything. And it was just random times it would happen as well. It was just doing it by itself, and the volume would go up and stuff. And to begin with, when I hear it, I normally think it's like somebody outside, and then it clicks the TV again, then I look at the time and I'm like, ooh. So, bit spooky to say the least. Yeah, and quite a few times I felt a presence in the room, and I'll look to the other end of the room and stuff, and I'll be able to sense there's something that I haven't seen it yet. I can feel it. And but Duke can see it. And Duke's always looking at stuff and like getting a bit upset about there being something in the room, but I haven't seen it. I can feel it. And sometimes I feel it first, and sometimes he'll see it, and then I'll be like, whoa, there's something there, you know. And sometimes he's barking at nothing for ages, but I can tell there's something there too. And yeah, so it looks like he's just barking at the walls and stuff, but he's not that close to the wall. There's obviously something right there that he can see. And yeah, it looks like I tuned back in. So there we go, pretty spooky. And I figured since it's Halloween, I'd let you know. And I guess I never really tuned out. I guess it's probably more of a case of you're either lucky enough to live in a house that isn't haunted, or you live in a haunted house and you're gonna see stuff. It's probably how it is. Yeah, so lots of spooky stuff. Like I said, yeah, it'll be good for people that I'm working with in the future. When I'm interviewing them, then I can refer them to this video, so they know that I'm going to be respectful with their stories and stuff, and not make fun of them, because that's always going to be one of the main things people are going to be worried about when speaking about the paranormal, is the fact that people won't believe them, people will make fun of them, and you know, like, I can't very well be all like, hey, listen, that's how you take all the risks and I'll take none. So I'm going to keep sharing my paranormal shenanigans that's happening within my life on here too, just to kind of level the playing field, you know, like you can't have other people take all the gambles and stuff, you know. So there we go. Shit got spooky. Having said that, we've got some really amazingly cool spooky things happening soon, like they've been lined up for filming. So yeah, stay tuned, because there's going to be some mental stuff going down in the not so distant future. So there we go. We'll catch you later, and happy Halloween.